I know that the end is near.
And it's all going to be over. Thank
Yeah,
God.
no, exactly.
Hey everybody, your buddy Basil here, and you are listening to the Joyspiracy Theory, a podcast where we take a lighthearted look into the lives and inner lives of listeners like you. And we've got an excellent episode today. An awesome interview with a young lady named Traci. And oh boy, man, we hit some topics that I have not had the privilege of talking about yet. She tells us about what it's like to have a transgender child, and dealing with depression and things that go along with that, as well as just kind of what sticks along with us over the years. Also, we talk a little bit about Paul McCartney and how he's probably dead, and we all have been enjoying the music of a lookalike or a clone. Anyways, that was a new one. I hadn't really heard that one much, so got that to look forward to. I want to thank everybody who's liked the Facebook page. If you haven't done it yet, go over to facebook.com/The Joyspiracy Theory. Like the page, all sorts of good stuff over there. And thank you so much to all the Patreon supporters. If you feel like you would like to support this podcast financially, you can go over to patreon.com/The Joyspiracy Theory, and you can sign up for all the goodies we got going on over there. Let me see here. Oh, and thank you for those of you who have left iTunes reviews and ratings. It's really helping out. Thank you. Appreciate it. This one was a 5-star rating by Hogfish24336. They say, refreshing. Really enjoying the Joyspiracy Theory. It's quite refreshing to listen to other people's testimonials and hear how much God is doing in their lives. Keep up the good work, Basil. I will keep up the good work. But so yeah, if you haven't done it yet, and I know you haven't, so please go over to iTunes or any of your podcast players and leave a rating and a review. I appreciate it. Thank you very much for that, Hogfish24336. You're the best. All right, well, like I said, we're going to jump right into the interview here. This is, again, Traci. Oh, and if anybody hasn't done it yet, I usually don't plug my other shows, but Canary Cry Radio and Canary Cry News Talk, just go ahead and give that a search. Give it a search on your iTunes. You're going to be pretty happy you did. And so there you go. Okay, I think... Yes, going through the list. Yep, that's the list. Okay, everybody. Please enjoy this interview with Traci. Here we go.
Hello?
Hello, how are you, Traci?
Okay.
Okay, good. You sound a little exasperated.
No, it's way past my bedtime.
I know. Well, I was going to say, this is an interesting situation because this is simultaneously the earliest episode I've ever recorded, and you're late for bed.
Yes.
It's 11 o'clock in the morning.
Life.
In fact, it's actually, well, my computer says 11:11, but my phone says 11:15. So what's the deal? Why are you going to bed so early in the morning?
Oh, because I work nights.
Oh, okay. Well, are you a beat cop? Are you Batman? Are you
Yeah.
a vigilante? You don't have to give away your actual superhero name because I don't want to out you, but you just need to tell me honestly right now, yes or no. Are you a crime-fighting vigilante?
Depends on what you mean by that.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. What do you do that I might consider being a crime-fighting vigilante?
I don't know.
Well, I guess I'm asking, what do you do for work at night?
Okay, I work in a stat lab. I'm a lab technician.
Oh,
Medical lab technician.
that sounds fancy. So that's some science stuff. That's a little bit
Yeah.
more. It's a little bit more than a podcaster. You've impressed me.
Oh,
What
wow.
what
Okay.
kind of things do you do?
Okay, have you ever had your blood drawn
Uh,
for
I'm sure I have. I
to
don't
have
remember
a
it.
test done?
I think I blacked out, so I don't remember, but I'm sure I have.
Okay, well, I'm the one who does the testing on that blood.
Oh, cool. Okay, so you work with uh chemicals and
Bodily
in
fluids.
beakers and chemical and yes, bodily
Yeah,
fluids. Gross.
yes. Yeah, it can be. We make lots of jokes.
Lots of jokes about people's bodily fluids.
Just
Oh,
saying.
don't
Oh
say
yeah.
that. That's gonna make me super weirded out now.
We gotta keep ourselves sane.
But I'm curious, what kind of joke? Like, give us an example of
Okay,
joking around about bodily fluids.
so the people who draw the blood, they're called phlebotomists.
Mm-hmm.
So a phlebotomist goes up to try to draw somebody's blood, and they just can't get anything out of their veins, and I'm like, well, just punch them in the nose, you know?
That is one way to do it. Do you say
And
this in front of the the patient?
no, no.
Yeah, that might if you said that in front of me, I might work extra hard to give you my blood.
Ah. Well, there was the other guy who somebody came up to draw him, and he said, "You're not going to get crap out of me."
Mm-hmm.
And I turned around and I said, "Well, we don't want your crap. We want blood." You know?
That's pretty funny. That's
Yeah.
good. That's good. You have fun. You have fun.
Oh,
Those technicians, lab technicians. So
yes.
where are you from in the world?
Um, Originally or now?
I don't know. Whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
Right now, I live in a town called Bellingham in Washington, and it's actually the same town that Michael Heiser is from.
Oh, very interesting. You were up there in Washington. So did you
Yeah,
did you get an okay view of the eclipse?
I was asleep,
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, I was gonna say you do
but
know it was at like 2 in the afternoon, right? But that is
no,
totally
actually, it
right.
was like 9:30, 10 in the morning, and my husband went with his sister
Mm.
and his mom go for walks on Mondays, and they went to the park, and there was all these people doing fun things with it, and he got some really cool pictures.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice.
Yeah.
So why does all this lab work happen at night? That's what I'm curious about.
What, you don't think people get sick in the middle of the night?
I see
We
it's
service a hospital, so
okay. All right. So you're kind of like an immediate service type thing. I have this
yeah.
vision where like somebody takes your blood and then it's just sent off somewhere for weeks.
And magically, when you go back to the doctor, they
Right.
have
Yeah,
some kind of numbers that they read off that you have no idea what they mean, right?
exactly. You're joking,
Yeah.
but that's exactly right.
Yes, you should hear our conversations around the dinner table.
Oh man. Well, we'll get into that. Now, where are you from originally?
Well, I was born in Mississippi,
Okay. All right.
and
So you got, you
because
got
my mom is from Louisiana, from
mhm.
New Orleans, and but I've lived most of my life here. So,
Interesting. So that's a big change going from Mississippi to Washington.
and I did live in Texas too.
Oh, of course. Of course. Well, it's a
Is there anybody who
prerequisite.
hasn't?
Yeah, I was going to say you have to live in Texas at some point in your life to even think about listening to this show. Um,
Yes.
what's up, my Texas people? Um, okay, so like I said, I mean that's a pretty big change. You're like in the South, in the real South, and then you're pretty much up in the most pretty like I mean,
Yeah.
come on, it's
We're
pretty much the direct
we're on the
opposite.
49th parallel, so
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
I'm an hour away from Vancouver, BC.
Oh wow. Yeah, you're way up there. What were you running from? What did you escape from?
Oh, do you want to hear this story?
I would love to hear this story.
Okay. Well, I was really young, but okay, so my dad is actually from this area originally,
Hmm.
and him and his two best friends were going to travel around the world when they
Okay.
were like 20. 18 or 19 or 20 or something like that.
That sounds like
And
an
they,
18 or 19 or 20 thing to do.
yeah,
That sounds
yeah,
exhausting to me right now.
yeah. So they made it as far as New Orleans and they ran out of money. And so he started going to church, and my mom met him at church. And actually, she was in high school still, and he was like a youth leader. And they started dating, and he was never going to get married. A year or two later, they were married.
Okay,
And
very nice.
56 years later, they're still happily married.
Wow, that's very impressive.
Yeah, it is. So,
What would you contribute that long marriage to?
well, being married 30 years myself,
Mm-hmm.
um, oh, so many things.
We got time.
Being,
We're only about 8 minutes in, so we've
okay,
got some
well,
time.
being each other's best friend,
Mm,
um, for sure,
yeah.
and um, being able to spend time with each other, and um, with with my husband and I, my parents have been a big factor in, I think, in how we are, and my husband spoils me to death. So,
Yeah, well
but
that's a good reason to stick around.
yeah, but I mean, and we both have the attitude of, this person loves me. Why? I don't understand it. Even after 30
Interesting.
years, like I don't know why you like me. You know?
Wow, that's I mean, I don't know if you meant to be, but that was pretty profound.
Really? Oh,
Yeah. I
okay.
mean, I that's a good it's to be I mean, it's one thing to have confidence in your significant other's love for you, but it's another thing to have a little bit of mystery in there, you know. I think I feel like maybe that would keep it a little fresh, even if the mystery
Oh,
is why what is it
yeah.
about? How are you still around me?
Yeah, exactly.
I
I
bet that
mean,
makes you pretty grateful.
oh, exceedingly. God knew exactly what I needed.
Ah, which reminds me, I forgot to ask you what you're grateful for today.
Oh, wow. I have so many
I was
things.
just so excited to be recording so early in the morning.
Got all this energy.
Yeah.
At least one of us does.
Yeah, yeah. I'm here. I'm here to just loan you some of my energy.
There you go. I'll
Hmm.
try not to yawn too much.
Yeah, but
Okay,
you'll have to
so
return it at the end of the show.
yeah.
Because I have a full
So,
day after this.
oh, there you go.
All right,
I'm still not
what are you grateful
okay.
for? Give it to me.
Um, my husband,
Mm.
definitely. He's my best friend, my travel buddy, my confidant. Love him to death. And my parents, they have always been there for me and have always supported us and given us wonderful advice and everything. They're always there with advice. They've always been there with our kids, and that's part of how we've been able to keep our friendship up, is that they've taken our kids for a week to 2 weeks at a time
Mm.
while we've gone off and spent time together.
That's
And
great.
I know that is a huge blessing, because I know so many people that don't have that opportunity to do that, and I'm so grateful for that they have been there for that. And I'm grateful for my daughter, because she is 23, just turned 23, and is becoming the most. Oh, hold on.
Oh, lots of buzzing. Something exciting's happening over there.
My phone rang.
Oh.
Anyway, she is becoming the most wonderful woman of God. It's just amazing. Her, I don't know. It's just to know where she was and where she's come to is just amazing to me. I got married when I was 20, and here she is 23, and she's never had a boyfriend.
Wow.
And but yet she's naive in a lot of ways, but she seems so much wiser in other ways. It's just amazing to me.
That's very impressive. Sounds like a pretty
Yeah,
impressive girl you got there.
yeah. She's not perfect by any means,
What? No way. So, how
but
many kids you got? Just one, or what else
I
you
have
got?
two. I
Okay.
have two. I have a
And
son.
the other one we don't talk about.
What the cats?
Now, tell me about your son. How he just as impressive?
Well,
Not to
well,
force you to rank your children on broadcast.
I love my son so much. I
Mm-hmm.
absolutely do. But yeah, he's 25
Okay.
and he, do I tell this story? Okay. So he has lived at home and he hasn't lived at home. Sorry.
He has lived at home and he
Yeah.
hasn't lived at home.
Well, he lived at home till golly, till he was like 20 and then he moved out. He got a job and then he lost his job and he was living with his friend and his friend was paying his rent and for like 4 or 5 months and then it's like, no, you got to come home because obviously you can't keep owing this guy money. And
Right.
so he came home for a while and then he hooked up with this one girl and they were gonna, or he she was homeless and so he wanted her to come live at our house and
Whoa.
I'm like, no. Don't think so.
Sure, sure.
So he left, or he decided to leave and they were like playing musical house, spend a few nights at this person's house and a few nights at this person's house. Still didn't have a job at this point and ended up being homeless. He decided to go live at the lighthouse mission than to not be with his girlfriend. Like,
Interesting. Now,
so
so he
yeah.
made a choice to not live with his girlfriend, but also not go home to
No,
you.
she was there too.
Oh, they were
She
both
was at the
over there.
women's part of the lighthouse mission.
Got it.
So
Wow. Yeah.
so
I mean,
that
he
was
must.
really,
This girl must be really something else, then, because that's a pretty big. That seems like a pretty big sacrifice for a young lady.
yeah, yeah. So but that was like in September, October. This was like, I want to say this was 2014.
Mm-hmm.
That was September, October. By December, she had by like the end of November, she had left him and he was super depressed. He was talking with my sister, and by Christmas, everybody was concerned. Even my daughter, who was like, we can't have him live at home anymore. We can't handle him, was like, we need to get him out of there and we need to get him home because I'm afraid he's going to hurt himself.
Right. Well, that's not a good
So,
place for anybody to be, really.
no, no. So we, I called him on Christmas Eve that year and I said, I think we're going to pick you up for Christmas and you just need to bring all your stuff and we'll bring you home. So we brought him home and he lived with us. So that would be 2015. And by that summer, I was just like, we were all just like, something is just not right with him. Something's just wrong.
Hmm.
And he's never been forthcoming with us ever. He's always, like he would have a girlfriend and we'd find out 2 months later, oh, yeah, by the way, I have this girlfriend.
Sure.
And by the time we find out, a week later, they'd break up and we'd find out 2 months later that he'd broken up, so
Right. Right.
he just doesn't share things. And so I spent that summer off and on fasting and praying to God in the spirit because I had no words. Lord, please let us know what's going on with him. Need to know how to pray for him. We need to know, what to do for him, how to help him. And so went on all summer, 2015. And then in September, I want to say, he came to us and told us that he was transgendered.
Whoa.
And I went, okay, God, that's not what I was expecting.
Whoa, that is definitely not what I was expecting either.
Not just transgendered, but a transgendered that still likes girls, so he's a lesbian.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Well, that puts a whole new spin on things, doesn't it?
Yes.
Interesting. Well,
So,
so that's where all the kind of despair was coming from, was he was
oh,
obviously sort of
yeah,
wrestling with this.
yes. And so I'm like, okay, so at least now we know what to pray for. And my sister, who is very liberal, not a Christian, he came out to her first and she was like, yay, go for it. This is wonderful. This will change your life. You'll be just so happy. And within like 3 months, she was like, this isn't real. He
You,
just wants attention.
your sister was thinking that.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
she's
She's like,
she's the
real.
liberal.
Yeah. She was the cheerleader for him. Yeah. And she's like,
Interesting.
this isn't real. And we've actually, my daughter has actually, seen people at her school. She's at the community college, the nursing program right now. And she'll come across people that know him and have seen him as he is now. And they're like, yeah, this isn't real.
Well,
This isn't real.
that is so
So
fascinating. So what
I know.
what are the how can they tell? What sort of characteristics
I
make them
I
doubt the
don't know.
authenticity?
I don't know because I mean he's even gone so far as to have his name changed legally, the social security card and everything. And um so anyway, so this was 2015. Excuse me. So he was still living with us, but we kind of had stipulations that, okay, we don't accept this. You are our son. We cannot say that God made a mistake. You are our son and you will always be our son. You can do
Fascinating.
what you need to do outside of the house, but in the house, I mean, especially with my husband, we took the kids to a movie and I went to the bathroom and I was in one of the stalls and I looked down and I saw his feet
Uh,
and then the stall next door
so
to
that
me
so that
in the
brings up
women's
my
bathroom.
yeah, no, sure. and that's certainly a hot
And
topic
when and
nowadays.
when I came out and I saw my husband, he was just like he was about ready to lose it. And when we got home from the movie, I'm like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "No, my son was in the women's bathroom. I am not okay."
Sure, sure. I know. I mean that's totally understandable when you're a father who's had a son all his life, and suddenly that son's not a son anymore. So
Yeah.
so as far as the outward changes, I mean, was he dressing like a woman, wearing makeup? Was he getting any
Yeah.
surgeries? What did that look like?
Okay. So he started taking estrogen, which I said I'm not going to pay for this with he was on our insurance at the time. I said I'm not paying for this. So he went and got his own insurance through Obamacare and was taking testosterone blockers and taking estrogen. And he was wearing a bra. It was a padded bra, so it looked like he had, a chest.
Hmm.
And he would wear makeup, and he was growing his hair out, but not around, basically not at home. He'd come home and he'd go upstairs and he'd put his pajamas on and come down if he even came home.
Right.
And then
Fascinating.
the rule was if because we get together with our families, with us and my parents, and now that my sisters moved back, we get together for birthdays and holidays and everything. And I'm like, if we're getting together as a family, you need to dress as a boy.
Wow.
So that went on
So
for
I have a question.
okay.
Might be in poor taste. Might be sensitive, but I'm very curious. Uh, and you got to be honest. Was he passing?
Oh,
was he able to
you
convince
know,
anyone that was successfully a woman?
I don't know. He's like 6'2"
Oh,
and
well, that doesn't help.
140 pounds.
Oh, tall, skinny
He,
boy,
oh yeah,
or
yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
And I mean, but he's got a very pretty face.
Okay.
So I've always thought he was adorable.
Mm-hmm.
He's very cute.
Got it.
But um I don't know.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
have no
I
idea.
guess I
I
guess the
personally
mother
don't
is
know.
not really the one to ask about that. I'll
I
have to
mean,
get a third party observer.
I yeah, I mean I could send you some pictures from Facebook and show you what he looks like and tell me if he looks like a girl or not.
I mean, hey, I don't want to make you do anything you're uncomfortable with, but if you drop a link in the Skype chat, I will look at it. Oh, you're on Skype on your phone, so that might be difficult. But
Oh, yeah.
if you're at a
Okay.
computer, if I do receive a link, I will give you my opinion.
Okay. So anyway, so this went on. He when was it? I want to say it was early 2016. He didn't get arrested, but he was caught stealing. He's
Mm,
also addicted to video games.
sure, sure.
And so he had to go to court and everything. And he was banned from the store. And he basically is like, I can never work in retail again. At
Mm,
least on my record.
yeah.
And so he basically was like, had given up on finding a job because the other thing is that he doesn't have a driver's license. He rides the bus all over town.
Man, I gotta say, you know, that's a rough situation your son's got going
Yeah.
on there. I could
Oh,
see,
well,
I feel for him in that sense.
well, part of the we tried a couple of times. We tried when he was 16 and he just wasn't mature enough. And then we tried again when he was 18 and he wrecked the car.
Oh, yikes.
So I'm like, okay, you're still not mature enough.
Wow.
So, yeah. I figure if he's 25 and he's got friends that drive, they can teach him at this point.
Now, does he have friends? Is he able to hold
He does.
some healthy social relationships?
If you call sitting around getting high all day healthy, sure.
Yeah, well, somebody might call it that.
No, I live in Washington. We're the pot state.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
It's not a Starbucks on every corner. It's a weed shop
I
on every
was gonna say
period.
by Washington standards, I think that counts as a healthy social relationship.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I actually, yeah. Well, okay, we'll get to that. So he moved out again in the fall or in the spring of 2016 because he didn't feel like we wanted him to be at home.
Sure.
Like, well, we never said that, but
Well, I could see how a young person might
yeah.
feel that way if they feel like
Well,
their self-identity is not being accepted. I'm
right,
just looking
exactly.
at it from his point of view. That makes sense.
Yes. And so by the next fall, we had birthdays in September, and then we had birthdays in October. And he came to the October birthday, and sometimes like he tries to get away with things. Like he'll come. I'll say wear slacks and a jacket because he actually asked for a pair of men's slacks, nice slacks because he's got a nice jacket and he asked for new ties, and I'm like, okay. This was after he had done this,
Sure.
but then like he shows up in like a woman's short jacket and women's pants, and I'm like, no, go change,
Mm.
or grandpa's not going to be able to handle that. Go change. So in October he actually came and was all friendly and everything, and then he asked us for some rent money. I'm
Classic.
like, yeah. So I'm like, okay, fine. We'll help you out for November. And then Thanksgiving came along, and I sent him the normal message, hey, we're doing this for Thanksgiving, you know, uh, dress code applies. And then he's like, well, what do you mean dress code? And I'm like, you know what I mean? You need to dress like a boy. And he's like, well, I'm tired of all this. And he basically kind of went off on me in a rant. And it's like, you're not respecting my pronouns, I think is how he puts it.
Sure. That's the
And
popular vernacular.
yeah. And so I'm like, well, I'm sorry, I can't. You
Yeah.
are my son. You will always be my son.
Mm-hmm.
And so he opted to go to a friend's house for Thanksgiving, which was weird. And then for Christmas, we went through the same thing. He's like, if he basically ended up cutting us off last Christmas, saying, is as long as you do not respect my pronouns, it's unhealthy for me to be around you guys.
Sure. Sure. And it's interesting because, I obviously this is a very sensitive situation, and you love your child, and your child, I'm sure loves you in that very primal family way, even though maybe sometimes they don't show it. Have there been times where you've just been tempted to give in to the pronouns that your child requests, or has it been a strong stance? I mean, it seems like a pretty stressful relationship overall.
Well, we have friends from our church who are going through the same thing with their son,
Mm-hmm.
and they opted to call him a her.
Sure.
And I'm just like, how can you do that? I mean, no, I can't do it. It goes to me, like I said, it's like you're just saying, God, you screwed up.
Yeah.
You made him a boy, but he's really supposed to be a girl. How could how'd
Yeah.
you do that, God?
No, certainly
No,
understandable.
God doesn't make mistakes.
Right.
I mean, yes, there's a lot of mistakes that have happened in the world, but I don't think this is one of them.
Yeah, no, hey, that's a totally I totally have empathy for your, well, sympathy for your situation. How have
Yeah.
have you been able to connect with that other family? Have you been able to compare stories, or what have you observed their relationship?
No, not really. It was mainly my husband talked to the father a little bit, and my response was, sorry, can't do that.
Yeah.
and my husband understood that too. It's like, no, I can't do it either.
Yeah. Oh, so
So
well, that sounds good that your husband at least got a chance to talk to somebody. I can see how that might be a pretty isolating experience for
yeah.
especially a
Believe me.
traditional
Oh,
man.
like I finally told one person at my work who I know is a Christian and would understand. And I was like, please do not say this to anybody else at
Yeah.
work, because I don't want to be judged,
Yeah.
for, oh, how dare you not love your child?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Right.
it's like, would not believe how much I love my child.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
he just,
I think that's a big problem that people have, because obviously, uh, the initial response to maybe accepting your son's requests would be like, oh, you love your child so much, and not accepting his requests
no, it's called
automatically,
tough love.
right, gets seen as not loving him. But
Right.
I totally understand. What a conundrum. Now,
Yeah.
have you
Well,
personally felt any judgment from other people, whether it's in the church or in secular society, not just for your own role in it, but just the fact that, you made a person who is, figuring themselves out in this way?
no, I
Well,
don't think so.
well, that's good.
I mean, we've had a lot of, I mean, my parents, my husband's mom and family are all Christians. Everybody's Christians
Mm-hmm.
except for my sister.
Sure.
and there's been promises made for her. So, um, but so we've got so many people praying for him, and it goes deeper because there's more to this story.
Oh, okay. Well, let's get there.
Because so okay, so while all this was going on, while he was living at home and everything, weird things started happening around the house. Just
Interesting.
yeah, um and we just felt something was wrong with him. And we have a friend who is a seer,
Hmm.
can see beyond the veil, and we're like, what's going on with him? There is there something attached to him? And he was like, yes, there is something attached to him. And he said, it's not just some limey demon, it's a principality. And we're like, what? And he's like, it's a principality.
And
And
just to be clear for those who may not be necessarily versed in the difference between principalities and demons and things like that, why don't you share what that means for
well,
you?
from what I understand, I mean, there's, like it says in Ephesians 6, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against rulers and principalities
And
and I can't
powers of the
remember it
air
all.
and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's levels, just like there's levels of government and levels of of kings and stuff. And with people, there's levels with demons also. And a principality is usually has like a jurisdiction over an area, is what I understand.
Sure. Yeah.
And so the fact that he would have something like that attached to him makes me go, okay, God, what do you have in store for my son? That something that not just some lowly demon, but something of significance would want to attach himself to him.
Sure.
So that kind of gives me hope.
Yeah. No, no. I'm curious. What kind of, you mentioned weird stuff going on around the
Okay,
house. Like what?
so well, okay, I get sleep paralysis, and I didn't realize what it was until I listened to what's his name, White.
Chris White.
Chris White, yeah.
Hmm.
I heard some of his stuff and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's me. And um I was I was I was having quite a few episodes of sleep paralysis, and my daughter can also sort of see beyond the veil. She sees angels.
Interesting.
And yes, and she says that there are angels that circle our house all the time. Usually they face out, which is, to protect us from stuff that's coming in.
Hmm.
But during this time, they were facing in. They were facing towards the house because the danger was in the house.
Fascinating.
Yes. And then during this time, we had an infestation of rats.
Whoa.
We have been in this house for, was it 19 years this December? And never had an issue with a rat ever. We had rats eating our all of our ducting for the heating. It was like in December, and we were like, why can't we get any heat in the house? Because they were eating all the ducting.
Oh,
We spent
wow. So
thousands of dollars
it
to
was like,
get that fixed.
yeah, it was like attacking the infrastructure of the
Yeah,
livability
I
of
mean
your
they
house in
they
winter.
the piping underneath our sink in the kitchen, they ate the piping, and so we were leaking down there, and that was another couple $1,000 to get that fixed. And then I would be sitting, here in the middle of the night watching TV, and I would hear things in the walls. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. And then I don't usually see things, but sometimes I see things out of the corner of my eye, and I still kind of do that. And then there's still times I would have dreams about Joshua, my son, and they would be just like, okay, do you watch Star Trek? You ever
I'm
seen Star
I'm
Trek?
familiar with the franchise. Yeah.
Do you know who the Borg are?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so imagine a Borg mixed with the dolls that the neighbor kid on Toy Story destroyed.
Oh my gosh. You
That's
will be
what my son looked.
assimilated.
Yeah, that's what my son looked like in my dream.
Wow, that's pretty spooky.
Yeah, and then at the end of the dream, a snake came out of his head, like, and it came out like it was going to eat me. And I stopped it in the name of Jesus, and it went back in, and then it came back out again, and I yelled out, in the name of Jesus, leave my son alone. And I woke up, and Kevin came running in there and just like, what's going on? You know,
Yeah, wow.
like, whoa. But yeah, so he left, he moved out again. We were still having all this stuff going on in our house. I'm like, why is there still stuff going on here? Well, as it turned out, he still had stuff in the house that belonged to him. And it was basically, we had to get rid of every piece of anything that belonged to him out of our house.
Okay, so you're
And then,
doing kind of a cleanse thing there.
yeah. And then we ended up doing that too. Have you seen War Room?
I didn't see it.
Oh, there's this awesome part where she just like stands up and says, Satan, you do not belong here anymore. Get out of my house. So my husband and I did that too in our house. It's like, you do not belong here anymore. Get out of here.
Wow.
So we
Yeah.
just had to, and we cleaned it and we went up to his room and we anointed it with oil and we prayed over it and everything. And things got better. So I still, it is so, it's so hard. The last thing in the world I would ever want for anybody after experiencing sleep paralysis is to have it happen to anybody,
Yeah.
especially my daughter. My daughter had an episode of sleep paralysis a
Was she
while
living
back.
in the house at the time?
Yeah, she lives with us and she's going to school. We're letting her live here.
Got it.
And she came down in the middle of the night just in tears, just freaking out. And I'm like, what's going on? And she told me, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm like thinking, oh my gosh, what the heck, what would have caused this? And the only thing she could think of is that she had had a conversation with her brother that night on the phone, and then she went to bed and she had the sleep paralysis episode.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, I mean, that's pretty fascinating. It seems like all those things are sort of lining up there.
yeah, yeah. And so it's yeah.
How
But since
recently was that?
that was maybe last spring.
Okay. I'm sorry, continue. It seems like you're going to give us
No,
an update there.
no, well, yeah, so he cut us off in December and we went ahead and gave him his Christmas stuff and his birthday's in January and we gave him stuff for his birthday. And I said, we're still gonna love you. You're still our son. We're not cutting you off. This is your decision. And he still gets mail here periodically and we had been having our daughter take it to him because he's a little more patient with her, I guess. And this summer, after that happened, she was like, I don't think I could, I want to go see him. And so I'm like, fine, I will take the mail to him. So this summer, I actually saw him for the first time in like 9 months. And he was high, but
Uh,
we
That's a
stood there
pretty
outside my
that's a
door
pretty
and
bold choice. Get
I'm
high
like,
before
we're
mom comes over.
chatty. He's like, yeah, I'm high.
Oh no.
I mean, and we chatted about stuff and it was all fine. I didn't, say call him by his name or anything or just kind of we just chatted and said see ya and he got a he got a text message from his friend saying, "Did your mother kidnap you? Why are you taking so long?"
Nope, just
But
giving me my mail.
yeah, so
Well, that's interesting. What is that relationship like now? Is that kind of where it's at? He's
yeah, I
off.
haven't talked to him since. So, I mean, we pray for him, and we have everybody's praying for him, and
Yeah. Well, that's very interesting. He's obviously going through something pretty heavy, and that's I personally can't relate with what would cause somebody to feel like they need to make that change. Certainly is more of a hot topic nowadays. Seems to be happening more frequently than ever. Um,
that's the thing. It was very shortly after Bruce Jenner came out that he decided.
oh yeah, well there you go.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's one of those things where it's kind of billed as a personal choice and things like that, but it does have quite an impact on everybody involved.
Hmm.
Because not only are you necessarily making a change in your life, and you get the choice to make that change. But for
Hmm.
everybody else, like your family and your friends and everything, it's a similar change, certainly
Yeah,
in I guess gravitas. Um, but there's no control attached to it. You're not making any decisions that are really having any effect. You're kind of stuck in a corner having to choose how to react to the situation, huh?
exactly. Yes.
Yeah, that's difficult.
Yeah. Which is probably why he decided to distance himself
Sure.
from it.
And at the same time, certainly the I'm sure he's getting advice from people in that community that's kind of
Oh,
what you
yeah.
have to do to you know
Oh,
find
yeah.
some sort of
We had
peace or something.
last Christmas when he was telling me that, you know, we were unhealthy for him.
Hmm.
He had his friend texting me at the same time, just calling me every name in the book, telling me I was a horrible mother and everything else. And I'm just like, seriously?
Who are you? Get out of here.
Yeah, I don't even know who you are. Why are you doing this? You know?
Yeah, right. You know, Oh man, what was I gonna ask? Hmm. Yeah, and it's one of those things too where you can't necessarily look forward into the future. I mean, you could ask, are you gonna see any improvement or whatever? But it's really not up to you at this point. It seems
Right.
like it's a decision that he's gonna have to go through and work through, however which way it goes. And you
Well,
you obviously are very convicted in your decision to how to handle
yes,
this situation. So
yes.
it takes something pretty extreme to seems like
I
to
know it's like, what is it going to take? One thing I have been praying, and I don't know if this is right, but it's what I feel led to pray is that he will see what is attached to him. That he will
mm,
be, I don't think he's aware, or if he is, it's not conscious. And I mean, if maybe if he was aware of what was going on,
yeah.
that might do something.
Yeah, well, it's curious too. I would be curious to ask him if he's any happier now that he's begun this transition, because that's the transgender community still has one of the highest suicide rates and still has one of the
Really.
highest rates of depression and things like that. So I
Well,
mean, it's a brutal community.
you'll wonder why he's getting high all the time.
Well, certainly that's part of it. Um, and so, it would be interesting to know if going through with this transition is, helping with any sort of happiness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's some conversational fodder next time you talk. Just chatting about the weather and whether or not he's happy.
Yeah.
Well, that's a very I'm so glad that you shared that with me. I know that mustn't be easy. To
No, well, I've come a long ways, even up to like 6 months ago. Every time I even thought about talking about it, I just start bawling.
Yeah.
So I
I'm
feel like,
wondering I'm wondering if there's I'm sure there's groups or something that you could join, surely on Facebook, but I wonder if there's some sort of kind of group therapy type situation where at least it would give you a chance to talk about these sorts of things with somebody besides, your family.
Oh, I'm sure there is. I'm just,
Have you considered
I'm
that?
not that kind of a person.
Right. Yeah. No, hey, I get it. I get it. There's certainly a stigma around things like that.
Yeah.
How have, you mentioned that it's just recently that you've been able to kind of talk about it and you, without bawling. I mean, certainly this has been
Oh,
emotionally draining on you. Would you like to share a little bit of just how it's been personally for you?
oh, horrible. I spent a year and a half in a really bad depression. There was stuff going on at work at the same time, and then having this on top of it, it was just, I was really depressed.
Yeah.
And I stopped taking some like my thyroid medications, and that made things worse.
Yeah.
And I gained a bunch of weight, and that made things worse. And it's just like,
Yeah.
it's taken me like a year to be crawling out of this hole that I dug
Yeah.
myself into
And
just because.
what do you think attributes to helping climb out of that? I mean, my experience with despair and things like that is, without being, it's one thing to have time, heal the wound or at least numb the wound. But for me personally, and what I found with a lot of situations is it really takes some effort to start crawling out of that ditch.
Yes, it's a choice, definitely. Um, well, I stopped taking my thyroid meds because I didn't want to go to my doctor because I just didn't want to deal with that. And I, I guess that was a really stupid thing for me to do because I guess I could have thrown myself into some sort of something. I can't remember what it's called, but
Yeah,
you're
certainly
not
probably
supposed to just go
something I
cold
wouldn't
turkey.
recommend.
No, no, and it's amazing that I didn't have that happen to me, but that that was a big part of the depression, and that was like the first 6 months, and then I I realized what was going on. It's like, oh, well, probably this is probably because of the thyroid, and so I started trying to fix my thyroid naturally because I still just didn't want to go to the doctor, and so and it just, I'm sure that it helped, but it didn't really fix things. It took till just like 6 months ago last spring where I finally went back on the medication, and I think that's helping.
Oh, well, that's certainly good. As much as I'm a proponent of natural, health and nutrition, and as much as I tout the benefits of things like juicing, and certainly have seen and heard of stories of people having some pretty tremendous, recoveries using that. I'm not here to tell anybody they shouldn't go to the doctor. That's definitely,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
especially if you're already in a despair. The problem is with that is when you do hit that point, you stop caring about certain parts of your own well-being. I mean, it's just natural. Like, you
yeah,
can't even blame somebody for it. It's just you naturally stop caring about things, and certainly,
yeah.
I think personally that things like, medications and going to the doctor for checkups and things, those are the first things to go because those things are just a
Mhm,
pain in the butt in the first place.
mhm.
So
Yeah,
that's I would say that's very good though. Realizing you got to get back on that, got to start taking care of yourself a little bit more, and
yeah. Well,
at
a lot of
least
it,
halt the sinking.
yes, a lot of it had to do with my daughter too. She's like, "This is not you." You. And I'm like, "No, this is just how I." And she's like, "No, this is not you. You need to do something. You need to fix this."
Yeah, well, isn't that interesting too? Your daughter is very wise because
Yes,
when
yes.
you're in it, you can't really realize that it's not normal. A lot of the times you're in it and it's all you know, and it's almost like you forget that there was any other feeling besides the despair.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
that's very good that she was there to remind you. And I would encourage everybody out there, if you know somebody going through something, maybe even simply reminding them that there is happiness out there, and that the default position does not need to be the despair. It's at least a good place to start.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
how has your daughter been handling all of this? I mean, you mentioned that she had a little bit better of a relationship until that sleep paralysis, and maybe not just her relationship with her brother, but how are things going with you?
Oh, as far as our little, the three of us, or even the three of us and my parents, we have all grown so much closer through this whole thing.
Well, that's
It's
good.
been really neat that, we pray together constantly for him and different things. And yeah,
So,
she's always, huh?
sorry, I was going to say, so it seems that it's at least brought your daughter closer to your family.
Yes, yes. I mean, she's gone through her own trials and tribulations, but yeah, she's she's the good one right now.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Life is long and tedious, and
Oh,
so much can change over the course of a lifetime. And so I'm curious to, I mean, I can't look into the future, and who knows if we'll ever have a chance to talk again. But I'm curious to see what God does in the lives of everyone in your family over the next, however many years, because talking about despair, I mean, despair is when you finally give up hope, is what that is. And the presence of hope is really one of the biggest ways to fight despair. And sometimes you got to fake it a little bit, but keeping just that little spark of hope is a good way to go. And
yeah.
I have hope that if not your will in the situation be completely fulfilled, at least some sort of healing come to first your son and then to your family, because that's you don't want to feel like you've lost your son to something like that.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah. Well, and how's your husband? He pulling through here?
Yeah, he's the strong one. He's he's always, well, actually we're both kind of that way with each other, if I'm just like going, I don't know why I'm doing this or what's going on here. He's like, look, it's this way. But then he'll do the same thing. He'll be like, why is this not working? Why can't I? And I'm like, Kevin, just stop. Look at it this way. This is this okay.
Well,
And
that's
so I
great.
guess we're really good for each other that way. So
Yeah, well, that's good. I think that's really a sign of somebody that you found that's going to work out for you, because a lot of times if you're not able to go back and forth like that, and one person seems to have to carry the other person for
oh
too
yeah.
long, that can just get exhausting, and that might cause some other issues. I got to say, big family changes like this are on at least on the list of things that can really start causing some serious marital problems. But it seems like you guys are pulling through okay.
So far, yeah.
Okay, well, very good. Well, very good. Well,
Yeah.
again, thank you so much for sharing all of that. I know, like I'll say it again, I know it's not easy to talk about, and I'm glad. I hope it at least helps to talk about it a little bit here. And we're about an hour in, so I'm not saying we have to keep harping on it if we finish it out. So if we finish it out, finish it. Let's finish it out.
That's great.
Okay. I don't need to keep sucking that out of you. So usually at an hour, we start talking about some of the other crazy things going on in the world. Now, I will say this. From what I've heard you talk about in, just talking about the situation and sort of your spiritual views and perhaps theological worldview there, seems you've got a pretty firm belief in an active supernatural activity here on Earth.
Oh yes. Absolutely.
So I'm going to start with what was your kind of experience growing up in the church? Was it kind of, I don't really want to put a name on it, but there's a select few denominations, if we want to get denominational about it, which we don't have to, that are kind of more geared to being open to the supernatural and stuff. Have you always been that way?
You know, that's interesting. Okay, so I grew up in a denomination called Disciples of Christ.
Uh-huh.
Have you ever heard of that?
I've heard the name. I'm not very familiar with it.
Okay. Well, and so it was church every Sunday, youth group, all that kind of stuff. Um, always had faith. I think I actually accepted Jesus into my heart when I was like 7 or 8, something like that, and I was baptized
Classic.
and went to church and everything, but it wasn't. It was just kind of part of my life, and I always knew God was real. I always knew He was around, and it kind of helped keep me mostly in check. I mean, I still had a little bit of wild side, but it kept me mostly in check. I never did anything super horrible.
Sure.
But when I was a freshman in high school, the last day of school, we had a party with, I was in orchestra, I play violin,
Uh-oh,
and
band kids. Those,
no,
those,
orchestra.
oh,
Very different.
excuse me.
Do not confuse the two.
Sorry, I take it back. I'm so uneducated in the difference between band kids and orchestra kids.
Band is wind instruments and orchestra is string instruments.
Oh,
Unless
okay.
you have a full orchestra, then it's both.
Well, I know that band kids can be a little bit more rowdy than people expect of them. Are orchestra kids the same way?
Uh, yeah, we go on tour and we stay up all night long. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Staying up all night long, eating Twizzlers and drinking Mountain Dew.
Sitting in Denny's and drinking coffee.
You guys are wild. Okay, so
Oh yeah,
tell me about this party.
till they kick us out. Okay, so it was the last day of school and we had a party, orchestra party, and the conversation went some weird ways. And one way, the a guy who actually ended up being like my best friend the next year, was talking about his friend who had died, and that he still would see him, you know, like a ghost. And we all got up and went, well, let's go to the cemetery. So we went to the cemetery to
Orchestra
see his
kids,
grave.
man.
Yeah. And but the weird thing was when we got back, we started in on talking about end time stuff.
Wait, did you just
And
skip over the cemetery trip? I'm assuming nothing exciting there happened.
yeah,
Didn't see
nothing
any
happened.
ghosts.
I just no.
Okay.
We just went to the cemetery in the middle of the night. Ooh.
Woo.
So we went back, and somehow the conversation went to end time stuff, which is weird. And I ended up finding out like a whole bunch of kids that I had no idea were Christians also, and ended up with a really good friend through that. But we were talking about Revelations and stuff that was going to happen, and this was like in 81, 82, 81.
Yeah,
A
well
long,
that was a
long, long time ago.
well, that was a good time for end times people. You had 88 coming up, and
Well, that, yeah.
I think there was one in 84 too.
Right, and the 1984 stuff. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that was when I graduated. Was 1984. So at the end of that night, I went home and I read the whole book of Revelation
In one night?
that night in one night.
Wow, you did drink a lot of coffee.
Yeah, and it kind of scared me, and it got me thinking. And I went down and I had a conversation with my mom the next morning, and I ended up changing churches and going to a Pentecostal church with some of my friends. and got involved with that. And that really helped. So the next few years really helped me grow. And then I kind of fell away as a senior, got involved in some weird things, and then and and then went through another depression. I've dealt with depression my whole life, off and on.
Yeah.
But ended up hooking up with a friend and got involved with the campus ministry up here at Western Washington University. And um, ended up getting baptized, learning speaking in tongues, getting that gift.
Yeah, you got the full Pentecostal treatment there.
Yeah, but I also have a gift with my violin that I'm able to play in the spirit, which is just it's God, it's not me.
Sure.
So, and it's very awesome. And so I've always seen the spirit moving. So I've always known he's there. I've never ever doubted that God was real. And I don't know, I've oh yeah, okay, so the night that I received the gift of tongues, I went home and I was laying in my bed and it was late. My parents were asleep downstairs and my door was kind of cracked, and I looked and I saw this shadow walk past my door, and it just freaked me out, and I started
Ooh.
in the spirit just like praying
Yeah.
like crazy, and was able to calm down. And the only thing I could think of is that because I had received that gift, I'm going to get attacked. you know?
Sure, sure.
So I've so I've known people that can see, and I haven't really seen much myself, but I know it's there. I can feel it. God gave me some reoccurring dreams that help me to understand what evil, what the feeling of evil and sin is. And I don't, and basically what he told me was, this is how I feel when God was saying this is how he feels when we sin. And
Yeah.
it was the most awful, horrible feeling you could ever imagine. And I'm like, wow, I don't ever want to do that to you. I don't ever want to cause you to feel that way, because it was just so horrible. And it was weird because it was like ranging from the worst sin you could think of, like murder and rape and all that kind of stuff, to hidden sins, which that looks so neat. I want to go do that, but it doesn't feel right. But I really want to do it, to things that are just out in the open, but you still know they're wrong. You know,
Sure, sure. And even
they
things
all
that
self-esteem. Yeah,
might be kind of generally accepted. So that's
right.
interesting. That so it is. Yeah, so you did have quite the Pentecostal experience there.
Yeah,
I found that Pentecostals definitely have a little bit more openness to some of the more supernatural stuff going on.
yeah. Because you see the spirit moving,
Sure.
but we don't go to that anymore. We go to an EV free church now.
What is that?
So evangelical free.
Oh, okay. What does that
Never
mean?
heard of that one either.
Is that
It
like fat
is
free?
okay. I wish. Okay. It's great because our pastor is from New York and he has a total New York attitude, and it's just like he doesn't beat around the bush. He tells it to you like it should be.
Oh, well, there you go.
But it's okay. So how I understand EV Free is that they were it's basically Lutheran, but when they moved to somewhere, they weren't allowed to keep their Lutheran title anymore. Kind of like how the Pennsylvania Dutch are really German, but because they moved, they couldn't keep the German name anymore.
Sure.
So, yeah, so that's what we where we go now,
Okay.
which they don't believe in the gifts of the Spirit, but we enjoy the fellowship
Oh,
and
that's
the
interesting. So you're kind of like undercover Pentecostals there.
yeah.
I was
There's
gonna.
actually quite a few of us there. They used to go to our old church. We all kind of migrated there.
Oh, that's interesting because I was gonna say you said they're kind of like Lutherans. I'm like, well, that doesn't really match up with the Pentecostal thing, but okay, whatever you say, lady.
Yeah, it is kind of funny because I mentioned I'm on the worship team, and I mentioned something about speaking in tongues to the leader, and he's like, "We don't do that here." And I just about started laughing. I'm like, "Oh wait, he's serious."
Yeah, no, don't mess with those Lutherans, man. They got their high church, and that's what you get.
Yeah,
Um,
we're not into liturgy and all that stuff.
yeah, it's
Absolutely not.
it's interesting. I think I've said in the past on this show that I actually rather like Lutherans. I think there is some value to the liturgy, and I think it's kind of fun and helps you get in the zone occasionally. I think the normal services that I'm used to and have been to throughout my lifetime are mainly have been more Pentecostal. So I think it's almost like my rebellion is enjoying Lutherans. That's my big
You're
rebellion in
going the
life.
opposite way.
Yeah. So that's interesting. Okay, so you kind of grew up. Well, at a very young age, you were pretty much into the Revelation and end time stuff, which is pretty common for I would say a number of Pentecostals. So that answers my question where you kind of started with the end time stuff, and that very easily transitions into conspiracy theories and UFOs explanations and things like that, right?
Oh, I am so into conspiracy theories.
I,
I love them.
I could have guessed. I could have guessed. Just because I always love asking this question. What's your favorite conspiracy theory or alternative theory?
In the Christian
Oh,
realm or
just
all around?
wherever you want to go.
Right now, I'm into the Paul is dead one, the
Paul is
PID.
dead. PID. That's very interesting. Somebody just mentioned that to me, and I did not fully know what it is.
You know who Paul McCartney is?
Yes, I know who Paul
Uh,
McCartney is.
and he used to be in a band called the Beatles.
Never heard of him.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding. Okay, yes, of course. The Beatles. I know
they are
Paul
getting, yes.
Oh, is
So,
this the one where okay, no, you explain it. I think I know what it is. You tell me.
okay, so the theory goes that in the in the fall of 1966, September 11th, actually, 1966, he was in some sort of accident and he was killed. And to keep this mega thing going, because they were like the the Beatles were the top grossing, export for Britain in the
Sure.
60s, because they were so famous, that if and between that and this is as the theory goes, the fear of having having all these girls kill themselves, or die of
I have a broken
sorrow,
heart. Yeah.
yeah, of their favorite Beatle being killed, was just too much. So it's like, okay, well, let's get a look-alike in here, and we'll just have him go, and we'll just pretend like nothing ever happened.
That is so fascinating. Now, obviously, there's a lot of conspiracy theories about lookalikes taking the place of things like
Yes,
presidents and stuff like that. But you're right. I
yeah,
mean, the Beatles were really a economic powerhouse at the time, and
yes.
so the theory is that the Paul McCartney that we have today is a lookalike or a clone or something.
He is not the original Paul. There's that's one theory. Another theory is that he actually was taken out because he was interested in in the stuff with President Kennedy being shot and not believing the story.
Sure, he started sticking his nose where it doesn't belong.
Exactly. And there was some other things that they were so famous that they could whatever they did, people would follow. And if they were not doing what the society or the
The
Illuminati or
powers that
whoever,
be, yeah.
the powers that be wanted them to be doing, then they needed to do something about it. And
You,
so they took them out and they put somebody in
you
that
know,
would.
that's so funny because, and please give me some grace on this statement. I mean it in the most possible, the most loving possible way. I love that that's your favorite conspiracy theory, especially because it seems like one of the most fun and inconsequential in a way, I guess. I know.
Well,
I mean, I can see how it would be used as like a control mechanism. Certainly, I'll give you that. But it's like, along with all the other conspiracy theories of like fluoride in the water, slowly mind controlling, television mind control, flat Earth, all this stuff. Paul McCartney being replaced by a lookalike.
Well, that's the thing, though. I mean, the other thing is that they think that they were part of the Tavistock Institute. You know anything about them and the
What?
MK Ultra and all that stuff?
Yeah, I'm sure our
The
listeners.
social conditioning.
Yeah, sure.
And so they think that it's like, okay, if we can get away with this, then we can control what they're doing and we can control the way the society is going and change the way things are going to turn out.
Right.
And
Well,
that's one thing.
They
And
certainly
then
had
the other,
that much social pull.
yes, exactly. And then the other thing is that if this guy who we call Paul McCartney today is really not the original biological Paul McCartney, then this guy has been living a lie for 50 years.
I mean, the guy lucked out, I think.
Yeah.
One day he's just a guy who his friends think he looks like Paul McCartney. The next day he is Paul McCartney.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Well, and it's interesting because some people might bring up, well, why didn't they do that with Lennon? But Lennon's death was very public, so you couldn't necessarily pull that one off very easy. I guess you could have rushed him to the hospital.
Yeah, they think he was taken out too.
Right.
Because he was getting too political too.
Right. I mean, if they were real smart, they would have rushed his body to the hospital and made a little switch out there.
Yeah, which, who knows, maybe they did.
Although the trauma of losing one Beatle could have, the traumatic mind control effect that they're looking for.
Well, they weren't the Beatles anymore at that time.
It's all coming together. It's all coming together. The conspiracy is revealing itself. Well, that's very interesting. I got to say, out of all the conspiracy theories being passed around, that...
Are you there?
Oh, are you missing me? I can hear you.
No, you're there now.
Okay.
I was fading out there.
I was going to say, out of all the conspiracy theories getting passed around, that one I've probably heard the least about. So...
Well, good. I'm glad I could inform you a little.
You're opening my ears and my eyes to the real world. Okay, so that's your favorite. Very good. I like it. Now, what was maybe one of the most eye-opening ones? The one that maybe most changed your worldview?
Okay, so in 2013, I was surfing through YouTube and I came across some stuff about giants. And I started looking at them going, wow, this is really interesting. And I always knew the story of Genesis 6. And I never really questioned it, especially because, there was Goliath. He was a giant. I never questioned it.
Sure.
And then for them to actually be like talking about bones and stuff, and it really kind of piqued my interest. And then I think I was listening to Coast to Coast and heard Steve Quayle on there.
Classic.
And then I also heard L.A. Marzulli on coast to coast, and so had those two names. So I was able to find them on iTunes, and really that kind of got me going. So definitely the Nephilim stuff is. I love your Nephilim updates.
Well, thank you. You're talking about our very short segment on Canary Cry News Talk.
Yes.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. I'm always surprised by how the concept of the Nephilim are pretty prevalent in secular society, and it's kind of hiding in plain sight a lot of the times.
It's getting more everywhere. It's
Yeah.
like all of a sudden, it's like I mean, my daughter even has this book. She's like, you need to read this. It talks about Nephilim. And I'm like, what?
Yeah. Maybe there'll be an official disclosure for Nephilim one of these days.
There you go.
I doubt it, though.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Now, so you mentioned that depression kind of had been an issue throughout your life, which it is for many people, and if that can come about for a lot of different reasons, sometimes spiritual, sometimes it's chemically induced, depending on which conspiracy theories you're subscribing to, and or mind controlled that way. Our media, our mass media that we're fed every day certainly has an aspect of depressive elements to it that seems to be widely affecting people's emotions. But as your buddy there, Chris
That's
White,
why I
mentions,
don't watch the news. I watch Big Bang Theory instead.
Yeah, well, there's nothing depressing about that show.
Yeah.
Although I know some YouTube exposed video producers that would say otherwise, that Sheldon's in the Illuminati and bringing down the population. So, oh man, where was I going with this? Oh, yeah. Anyways, so you mentioned that you had been dealing with that, and as myself and many other presenters have talked about, really, when you start waking up to this stuff, you kind of get a conspiracy depression syndrome going. Now, what I've noticed doing this show is a lot of times the people who experience depression don't have a special story about conspiracy depression because they're just kind of experiencing it off and on anyways. Did you know did it affect you in any way?
Yeah, I get excited.
Yes, talk more about that.
Because I know that the end is near.
Mm-hmm. And it's all going to be over, thank God.
Yeah, no, exactly. Knowing that all this stuff is coming out now and it's coming to light and everything's happening so fast. I mean, it's just like, I'm still on the fence about the pre-trib,
Sure.
all that stuff.
I think that's a valid.
Would love to think that pre-trib is the way that we're going to go, but I have a feeling it's really not going to. But in a way, I just really want it to be done.
Sure.
And so in that way, I'm kind of excited, but I know it's going to be horrible.
Yeah.
So, and then the other thing is that I don't want to go without my sons.
Yeah, well, there you go.
So I get depressed about that.
There you go. Now, did you raise your children in a, I'm assuming you did, in a very Christian household, and he had experiences in church and things like that?
Yeah, he was baptized, and he was a counselor at camp, and that was the first year that him and his sister actually started, he started noticing her as a person, which she has wanted her whole life.
Oh, you mean their relationship improved?
Yeah. He's very aloof and is very self-centered and doesn't really notice that the world is happening around him.
Sure.
And always been like that.
Yeah, and not to bring the whole conversation back to your son, but knowing that he has a genetic predisposition for depression and despair and things like that probably did not help out his situation too much more. And,
no.
There's also the the conversation about the once saved, always saved that we don't necessarily have to have here on this show. I know there's enough conversations going on about that on both sides of the conversation there.
Yeah.
But, you said something interesting about kind of getting excited when learning about certain conspiracy theories. And that is one thing I did notice as well. There is, and I think that might be what contributes to sort of the lack of joy or depression that comes shortly after, waking up to the world is, you do kind of get a little bit of an excitement and a high from it, learning the truth. It's exciting, maybe a little bit scary. But maybe you get a little low dose adrenaline rush learning about it, and coming down off of that, might be the times when we start not feeling so great about it.
Well, knowing that we're near the end, but yet life still keeps trudging along.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
It's
so
life.
what are some of the things that you do in your life to kind of keep things leveled off? I mean, knowing you have seems to be a biological predisposition for the sad feelings, and obviously have had life experiences that aren't necessarily something you would have chosen to have, but also being aware that it takes work to get to an emotional place that you're happy with and enjoying life and enjoying things like that.
Yeah.
Or is it something that maybe you haven't tried to work too hard on? Because this is something I haven't talked about too much on this show, but I think it is very valid, and I'd like to talk more about it someday, which is a lot of times we kind of enjoy melancholy feelings. You know what I mean? I mean, fall,
Yes.
I think I mentioned this, which is the fall times. I tend to get sort of an interesting melancholy going on in my own life, but it's not necessarily something that I don't like. I kind of like it for one weird reason or another, and maybe that's something I need to examine in myself. But have you found that experience as well?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you know where I live, and you
Yes.
know that we have a very limited summer, and I love the sun. I love being out in the warm sunshine. I live for it. This is wonderful. And I feel really good in the summer when I can be in the sunshine and play in my garden or just lay in the sun and
Yeah.
soak up the rays. Go to the beach or, take walks with the beautiful sunsets with my husband.
Absolutely.
Um, so, but that's a very limited time of the year.
Yeah, those are very special, short-lived times, I imagine, up there.
Yes. And with my job, I work 7 days on and 7 days off.
Oh,
And so, yeah. And so it's
and
10-hour shifts.
you have that sleep pattern you have to deal with. That sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, I've been doing it for what, 9 years now. And when I first started, I would always try to work work my way to be able to go to church on Sundays. Try to, and then I'd have to start turning myself around again for Wednesday. And I have fibromyalgia, and my body just can't handle it anymore. And so I don't get to church very often anymore. It's kind of sad.
Sure.
But so when I'm working, I wake up, I eat dinner, I go to work, I come home, I watch TV, I go to bed. For
Yeah.
7 days.
Yeah, you got your
But
little
then
routine.
and then when I'm off, I basically lay on the couch and do nothing, at least for the first 3 or 4 days. And then I get up and do some stuff. But it takes me 3 or 4 days to recuperate from working.
Yeah, now
It's like,
do you keep that kind of night schedule when you're off for the 7 days?
yeah, I usually go to bed around 4 in the morning, 3 or 4 in the morning when I'm off, as opposed to 10:30 when I'm working.
Okay.
It's basically I'm exactly I go to bed at 10:30 in the morning. I get up at 6:30 at night. So
Wow. That's intense.
Yeah. But I'm up more in the summer. I mean, like, I can sleep 10 to 12 hours on my days off
Yeah.
in this time of year, but in the summer I'm up a lot earlier because I just want to be outside.
Sure. So what you're saying is your life isn't necessarily set up for, the sleep pattern and the weather patterns that necessarily encourage joy and
Yeah,
happy
I don't live in
feelings.
the right place, that's for sure. I
Sure.
mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful area,
Yeah.
and I mean, it really is just gorgeous here. But I think I need to live in Arizona or something. My husband and I did a Southwest tour last spring for our 30th anniversary,
hmm
and we went through Utah and Arizona and California. And Utah, oh my goodness, it is the most gorgeous place
Oh
I've
yeah.
ever seen.
No, that whole part of the country is beautiful. So what I'm hearing, to go back to my question, is that it doesn't sound like well, it sounds like your schedule and your environment really does make it kind of difficult to get what you need in order to encourage those sunny happy feelings or those well rested normal circadian rhythms.
Yeah, because I don't sleep well anyway.
Yeah. Well, have you ever attempted to try to figure that out? I mean, it's hard when it's your job. I mean, it's like you don't even really have a choice. I mean, you could make a big choice to try to change your whole life and get on a
Well,
new
right
schedule and
now,
stuff.
yeah, even right now, as long as our daughter's living in the house with us, going to school, we've only got two vehicles, and the only way it works is for me to work nights.
Right. Wow. Now,
So, and I prefer nights. It's so nice to not have all the drama of daytime people.
yeah, I guess it's a little bit less busy during the nighttime, huh?
Yeah.
So here's my question for you. Is there something that you've been wanting to do that maybe might be a little bit more geared towards self-care in an emotional sense or in a physical sense? Is there something that you've been wanting to do, but it's just not working out with the night schedule and the 7 days on, 7 days off, which sounds like complete madness to me, but hey, it's your life, sister. Is there something, even if it's like a bucket list item or maybe a habit you wish you could start doing, but it's just not realistic?
Yeah, I keep trying to take walks,
Hey,
and
there you go.
I mean, we just had snow. We
Y-
never have snow. We just had snow. We had a half a foot of snow here
You can
last
walk
weekend.
in the snow, sister. Put on some boots. Get on out there. Get on out
I
there.
know I should be used to walking in the rain.
Yeah, I know. Cold ain't nothing. That's what God invented jackets for.
God invented those, right?
So, so what's keeping you from taking those walks?
Well, golly, I always think I'm going to do it when I get home from work, and I'm usually just too tired.
Yeah.
And then when I'm off, it's just getting my clothes on and getting
Yeah, it's the motivation to do it. Well, I'll say this just as a preface. Taking walks is a habit that I implemented a while back and a long time ago when this show first started with I believe it was a episode with Natalina.
Yeah, it was your first one, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe so. Yes, yes, yes. We talked about taking walks and how good it is for your mental health, and especially if you don't have an exercise routine, it's a good, simple, easy going way to at least get your body moving,
Hmm.
and in a way that doesn't have a lot of expectation to it. So you get to kind of let yourself off the hook a little bit. Now, I'm just talking here. This is not me trying to solve your problems. I'm just curious. I like to see people taking their emotional health into their own hands here. If you could take a walk, it sounds like just the now again I say this in all love and respect. Sounds like maybe just a little bit of laziness getting in the way.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Good.
I'm not going to say no to that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I gotta say, I struggle with the same thing. I recently have been very good at exercising the past 6 weeks, and then these past 2 weeks. So the past 2 weeks I've been extremely lazy, and then the 6 weeks before that, I was very proud of myself, getting up and doing what I had to do to go get some exercise, and feeling the benefits, clearing my head. Getting out there, sometimes just even getting out of the house is enough to lift my spirits. Um,
Yeah.
and so, anyways,
So did you lose all you gained in the 2 weeks
yeah.
of doing nothing?
I over the 6 weeks, I saw some very big improvements in my physique, if I do say so myself. And luckily, I can say that it's so far lasted 2 weeks without
Oh, well, good.
without any too big a negative impact. So,
Well, there you go.
so I'm kind of riding that wave right now, but I'm gonna say, don't make me start badgering you to get out there and take walks, because I want you to do that. Because we got to take care of ourselves, sister, and you got to set a good example. Got to set a good
I
example
know.
for the rest of your family. I now don't think I'm putting you down. We're here. We're on the
Actually,
same team.
my husband takes walks all the time, and my daughter dances 4 days a week. So,
Well, maybe it's his job. He needs to roust you. I'm sure. And here's what you need to do. Okay, I'm figuring it out. Here I am solving all the world's problems, like I know I shouldn't be doing. You just gotta tell your husband, be like, look, no matter how much I fight, no matter how much I scream or cry or kick, you gotta get me out of the house. And the good things about walks is you really only need about 15 minutes.
right.
But the good thing to do, and this is what I did with my routine for that glorious 6 weeks, was I started with setting just exceedingly low expectations. And
Oh, well, hey,
I
great.
recommend this for everybody. You set exceedingly low expectations for yourself. I mean, literally, the first day that I started, I'm like, all right, 5 minutes. I'm just going to do this activity for 5 minutes. If I can't force myself to do something for 5 minutes, there is something seriously wrong with me. And so it started with 5 minutes, and then it wasn't too bad. And the next day, I'm like, okay, 5 minutes, here we go. And, at the 5 minutes, it kept going for about 7 minutes, and it just kind of grew from there. So that's going to be my advice to you and everybody out there.
Well, I do walk. I mean, it's just not consistent. It's like once a week instead of 3 or 4 days a week, you
Yeah,
know.
well, that's good. That's a good start. So there you go. You got it. That's your 5 minutes. Now you just gotta do 2 times a week. Anyways, there's my there's my rant for this episode.
Okay. Okay.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that you've been doing it better since so many things have gone awry in your life. Here's a question. Do you got any
Yeah.
furry friends?
Oh,
I
I've
mean,
got three.
besides your demonic horde of rats?
Oh, I forgot to tell you about the cat that kept coming to our door
Is
during
this
this time.
Was he hungry for rat flesh?
Oh, I don't know, but there was this cat. It was a black cat, and it would come to our back door, and it would meow, and I would go up, and usually I'd be like, "Oh, kitty," I'd want to pet it, and I was like looking at this thing, going, "Something's not right." All I could think of was like a vampire or like the
Sure.
Black-Eyed Kids,
I don't
where
like the cut of that cat's
don't
jib.
don't don't let them in.
Sure.
Go away, go away. But no, we have three kitties.
Very cute. Tell me about them. Tell me about them right now.
Okay, so we have kitten Nepeta is her name,
Nepeta.
which is Nepeta is Latin for catnip.
Wow. I did not even know that there was a Latin word for catnip. I guess it's
Apparently there
the
is.
scientific name for the plant, I guess, is what that would be.
Yeah, probably. And she is the adorable runt. She was the runt of the litter, and
Mm.
actually she was my son's, but when he moved out, he couldn't take her with him, and so we have our grandchild kitten now that we absolutely love and adore, and she loves to sit on laps and lay on legs and is just sweet and cute and adorable.
Very cute. And that's a kitten? She's a little kitten still.
Oh, actually she's like 4.
Oh.
But she's tiny because she was a runt. So,
Right, right.
and we think that she's got Maine Coon in her, and usually Maine Coons are like giant cats, but she's tiny.
She a little fluffy, little fluff ball.
Oh, absolutely. And she's got the
Nice.
tufts on her feet and the mane around her face. Yes, she's
Yep.
adorable.
Well, sounds like it. Okay, keep going.
Okay, and then we have George or Jorge or Georgie Girl or Boy George or
Yeah.
Georgie Puddin' Pie.
And he responds to all of them.
Yes. But his real name is Sylvester, but we can't say Sylvester, so we call him George.
Yeah, that's kind of a mouthful.
Yeah. Anyway, and then so we have George, and he's a black tuxedo, and he has a sister who is gray. And so we thought, okay, if he's George, she's going to be Gracie.
Gracie or crazy?
Gracie.
Gracie. Got it.
George Burns and Gracie Allen.
Oh, yeah, totally. I totally know who that is.
Yeah.
I don't know who
No,
that
you don't.
is. No.
Hopefully someone out there in your audience will.
I'm sure everybody does except for me.
And they are, let's see, they're 7. And we had lost a cat and we went to go get a new kitten. And my husband and my daughter wanted the boy that was running around like it was crazy. And then there was the little girl sitting there just all prim and proper, watching her brothers run around like crazy cats. And I'm like, they're like, we want this one. I went, but I want her. And
Well,
they're
very
very cute.
good. They sound adorable.
Yes,
And
they
they
are.
and they run the household.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I can always guess that one.
Yes, they do. But it's okay. We don't know what we'd do without them.
Well, very good. I gotta say, 3 cats, that's an experience I haven't had yet. I've made it up to 2, but I've barred myself from getting a third because that's just for a
Well,
young bachelor to have 3 cats
yeah,
is
we can
like,
call you the crazy cat
yeah,
man.
that is a serious issue. I'm gonna have people calling psychiatric wards on me. If I get a third cat, it will literally just be me and 3 cats forever.
Oh,
That's hard to look past, I think. That shows some emotional issues that I think are unattractive to the opposite gender. Anyways. But maybe, I got to get some more human occupants of the household before that starts happening.
there you go.
All right. So here's the thing. I know that you're not well before we get into recounting your attempts at walking and your other attempts at physical health. Is there anything else just burning on your heart to talk about before we begin the landing process?
I don't know.
Okay. All right. Well, if nothing's jumping out, if some does jump out, you just go ahead and jump on in. Let's talk about it, okay? Okay. All right. So we already know that you've now made a commitment before God and man to start taking 2 walks a week. But yeah, and unfortunately, it sounds like you have some chronic health issues.
Yes.
But so now, and you've talked about maybe doing some natural remedies for things. Hopefully that includes nutrient dense foods. But
Yeah.
are you able to keep your diet under control, or does that go out the window with your crazy sleep schedule?
Um, Pretty much. Yeah, I went organic about 2.5 years ago,
Oh, well, that's good.
and so I cook everything from scratch now.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah,
Look, I mean, in this day and age, to do that, I mean, that's bigger than a lot of other choices you could be making.
yeah. I mean, I still like tonight. My husband's like, "Any dinner plans?" And I'm like, "No, just bring pizza home." So
Tracy,
not
that's not,
perfect.
that goes against everything you just said.
I eat organic, but I love pizza.
Organic
I can't
pizza.
help.
Well, I can't.
Yeah, there is such a thing.
Oh, I know. I can't blame you for the pizza thing. If anybody listened to the last episode, for Reformation Day, I literally had pizza for every meal of the day, and um,
Hey,
I was hoping to
if
kind of reset some sort of emotional clock.
if I knew I wouldn't weigh 400 pounds, I would eat pizza every meal too.
Yeah, I know. Just there by the grace of God, there go I. Um,
Yes, exactly.
so okay, all right. Well, organic's good. I mean, have the past 29 episodes of this podcast convinced you to at least try juicing at least once?
Oh, I've done it before.
Okay, I did it before. Didn't like it. Set the juicer on fire.
Nah, we had a really crappy juicer. This
Oh
was
yeah.
like maybe 20 years ago,
Oh yeah. No,
and it just wasted all of the everything.
yeah.
But I do smoothies
Juicers were
instead.
not at their technological peak that long ago.
No, I'm sure they weren't.
There's been some space age leaps and bounds in juice tech since
No,
then.
really?
Juice tech, I love that. Okay, I'm gonna write that one down.
Juice.
It's this new industry I'm starting. Juice tech. I'm gonna be a juice tech tycoon. All right, okay. Well, you gave it a
So
try,
I
but
do
smoothies are
smoothies.
good. I mean,
Yeah.
those are arguably better.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because you get all the fiber, you get all the good stuff. Everybody, all the health conscious people on here I talk to about juicing, they say, Basil, that's okay. You're talking about juicing, but smoothies are where it's at. You get all the extra goods that get
Yeah.
left behind in the juice. But
Yeah.
like I said, juice tech. Hashtag juice tech.
You're not buying it, are you?
No, I'm not buying it. I'll figure something
And
out.
so when I was trying to dig myself out of my hole, I started taking like B vitamins,
Oh, there you
and that
go.
seemed to really help. And then I was doing stuff like for my thyroid, like with iodine and stuff like that. And so I still do all that,
Yeah.
and I'm taking some multivitamins. And then just this summer, I discovered DoTerra
Of the essential oils.
essential oil.
Yeah.
Yes,
I've
which
heard mixed reviews on that. What do you think?
I told you I have fibromyalgia,
Yes, you have.
and at the end of the summer, I was at the point where I was going to ask my doctor to up my meds because I take medication for that too.
Right.
Um, and I said, but then I just discovered this doTERRA, and let me try this for a little while first and see if it helps. I don't have the aches that I had. I mean, I would always feel like I
Really?
had yeah,
That's very interesting. Now,
yeah.
what kind of oil can you make a recommendation? Now, just so everybody knows, this is not medical advice. I'm not responsible for your chronic illness or its supposed benefits of doTERRA. I'm not a doTERRA representative.
Well, any essential oil, I think, would be, as long as they're
Any essential oil. See, I'm not clear on the science of this essential oil business, but if you say so, I mean, if
well,
you're
I don't
claiming the
know.
benefits,
I
what are
don't know.
you using? What did you use?
Oh, I'm using so many things.
You've got your
I've
whole
spent so much
cocktail.
money. I've spent way too much money since
you've,
September.
you've got your Harvey Weinstein drug suitcase just filled
Oh,
with doTERRA.
oh my gosh. Oh my.
Okay, all right. Well, there you go, everybody.
Yeah,
Check it out.
I do I don't have the lavender, and there a lot of them are like mixes,
Sure,
but
they got
like
the
they've
blends.
they've yeah, they've got like an On Guard, which is
You know, I have taken the On Guard. Somebody at my church gave me the On Guard when I had some sort of strep throat or bronchitis or something. And
right, right.
if nothing else, they're tasty. I will say that
Sure.
it's tasty. It's like
And
a
and I do the DDR Prime, which is supposed to be good for your cell health.
yeah.
I do um Melaleuca, and I do a bunch of stuff for my stomach and my intestines. I do what do I do? I do them all. I
Yes.
do there's Breathe, which is because I get a lot of chest congestion,
Sure,
and
you got some peppermint and some things in there.
yeah,
Okay. All right.
yeah,
All
all
right.
sorts of
Well,
stuff.
very good. I actually guarantee that a large portion of my audience is familiar with doTERRA and are probably nodding along or shouting specific products of doTERRA into their
Well,
podcast player.
frankincense, which was like outrageously expensive, but it's wonderful.
Yeah.
It it's I've made some concoctions of my own, like for my husband and stuff, and
Well, that's good.
so yeah,
You're like a little potion maker.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, you are a scientist of sorts. So,
yes, I am.
all right. Well, very good. Okay, well that's interesting. I haven't surprisingly essential oils have not come up on this podcast before. So this is an episode of
Hey,
firsts, Tracy.
I
Good job.
know, it's so awesome. I'm
I
probably the
know.
oldest person you've talked to too.
And, well, maybe I'm not even gonna ask. You'll
Okay,
notice. You'll
I just
notice.
had a birthday, so
Well, that's good. Happy birthday.
thanks.
You can legally drink now. Um.
For a while, yeah.
Well, Tracy,
Not
thank you.
when I was married though.
Oh, yeah, you did get married young. Oh man, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and thank you for being so open about such difficult things. That's very special, and I know somebody out there is going to be. Well, I know a lot of people out there are going to be very touched by your experience and your testimony, and just what a lovely person you are.
Oh, thank you.
You're
It's been fun.
you're so very welcome, and we'll be sure to keep in touch. Okay.
Okay.
All right, Tracy. Well, it's about your bedtime. I see. It's about it's afternoon now. Holy moly! How are
Yes.
you still awake?
Hey, it's been fun.
All right. Well, go take 5 minutes, take a little walk, and I will talk to you later.
All right.
All right. Bye bye,
Thank you.
Tracy.
Bye.
Well, there you have it, folks. Hope you enjoyed that interview. More of a chat. I'd say it's more of a chat than an interview. I've been saying interview today. That's weird. Anyways, hope you enjoyed that. I certainly did. I mean, it gave me a perspective on something that I normally just hear, on Facebook, or you hear stories about it, or, if you're listening to the mainstream media, you kind of hear it from the other side, which sort of demonizes people like Tracy, I think. But certainly this was a good chance to hear it from the parent's point of view. So thank you very much, Tracy, for being open and honest about that. I think we all very much appreciate it. All right, just a reminder, everybody, go over to facebook.com/thejoyspiracy theory. You're going to get episodes of this. We post all sorts of other great podcasts you're going to love. And actually, I might be starting to do some doodles again, maybe some cartoons. Joy Spiracy Theory web comic. I don't know. I'm playing around. No promises. But if you want it, that's where it's going to be. Facebook.com/thejoyspiracy theory. If you want to support this podcast financially, you can go to patreon.com/thejoyspiracy theory. And just for pennies a day, you could feed poor podcast producers like me. And that's just a wonderful way and place to support the show. And hey, if you haven't done it yet, another awesome way you could support the show is just go ahead and send it to some friends. Tell some friends. A lot of times people don't know how to download podcasts. Teach them how to download podcasts and then subscribe them to this one. Tell your friends. It's going to be good. We'll spread the joy. Okay. Other than that, if you could go to iTunes like Hogfish, go leave a rating and a review. You can a rating is 5 stars, 1 to 5 stars. 1 stars is like, oh, I listened to the Joyspiracy Theory and a meteorite hit me in the nose. And 5 stars is a meteorite came down and hit my nose, and I got superpowers. And that's what listening to the Joyspiracy Theory is like. And leaving a review is just explaining how you got your nose powers to the world. Anyways, many of you, not a lot of people doing this, so I'll just put one more invite out there. If you go to the joyspiracytheory.com, on the right hand of the page, you can leave me a voicemail, leave me a song, or just say hi, or anything like that. It'll be fun. All right, everybody, make sure to tune in next time. But until you do, just take it easy, just chill.